Hi there, welcome back to the channel. This is Jeff Stone from Picture Time, and today I'm with my father-in-law Tim. Say hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
And we're up at the cabin in northern Wisconsin. We're quarantined due to the coronavirus pandemic, and we're starting to clean out the house, clean out the garage, and we pulled out the old cars.
Good way to do it.
And normally we're doing cruise ship videos or trying to explain different things that you can do together as a family to make memories on a budget. And what better way to make memories today when we're quarantined than take a look at the old cars and maybe go for a ride.
Doesn't get much better than that.
So obviously I enjoy the old cars, but you know way more about them than me.
Well, I got my first car, a Model A, when I was 15. So I've loved Model A's all my life.
Tim and I actually restored the old 31 truck behind us here together, but we picked this up last fall.
It was October.
And we're in April now, so just been sitting mostly through the winter, and we've just kind of gotten it out, and I'm just first time this week taking a look at this car, and it's really fun. Can you explain to us a little bit about this car and maybe some of the differences between this is a 1930, right?
Right.
A 1930 and the 31.
Absolutely.
And then maybe we could go for a drive?
I'd love to, anytime.
All right,
Absolutely.
so why don't you take us through a little bit? I'm curious to know how it works. I understand Ford kind of changed when they went from the Model T to the Model A, and a lot of this car operates very similar to a modern car, right?
Exactly. Well, with Model T was a great car. It worked out well for millions of people around the world. But the Model T was really getting obsolete at a certain point, and all the other manufacturers were really getting way ahead of Ford. And they needed a product that would actually keep up with the rest and go ahead again. So Edsel, Ford's son, said, "Dad, we got to make a change here. This is not going well. We're getting behind." So they said, let's come up with another model. So Edsel actually came up with this model, a Model A. And that happened they started development in 1927, and they actually came out with 28 for the first year. This is a 30, it's a Tudor sedan, and actually Tudor is spelled T-U-D-O-R, and that's the official word for it. And it'll fit 4 or 5 people very nicely. The great thing about this thing is that it's got a lot of horsepower. I mean, a lot for the day, at least. We went from like 25, I think it was, with Model Ts up to 40 horsepower on this one. And you can go down the road with this sedan, maybe 50-ish, and it's comfortable. And with a Model T, you don't want to go much over 35 maybe, or even 30. There's some real subtle differences between the 30 and the 31. For one thing, they put the gas turnoff underneath the gas tank, and this is the gas tank right here. You see the lid? That one you have to actually go under the hood and turn it off there. There's a few minor things like splash apron right by the running board. It has a slot right here on the 30s, and on the 31 you'll see that there is no slot. And the grille is just a little bit different, but for the most part the body parts are essentially the same.
So I know when we restored the 31 pickup, we tried to make it kind of like it would have been when it came out of the factory as far as the color scheme and everything.
Exactly.
This car here, what is the color that we're looking at? Is this completely factory? Is this how it would have come out of the stock as far as the color scheme and options available at the time?
Yes, they had probably 30 colors that were available back in the 30-31 range. I don't have the exact number, but it's something like that. And this would have been a two-tone color, and the pinstriping was very common as well at the time. I don't actually have it memorized what colors these are, but it's a factory color. The Rubelite red is what we have on the truck, and that works out great. Typically you had a black fenders, and then you had a different color body, and it's very common to have the two tones, where the upper half was one color and the bottom was another color.
Now the white wall tires on these look really great. I was cleaning it up when we pulled it out of the garage the other day, and I was like, wow, those really look neat. Now are those kind of factory, would that have been an option in 1930 as well?
I think it would have come with white walls. I'd have to check my book to see that for sure.
Well, it sure looks neat.
Yeah.
Let's take a look under the engine, and why don't we describe that a little bit?
Okay. Well, we have a 4-cylinder flathead engine, sometimes called an L-head. It's got a 200 cubic inch displacement. It's a 40 horsepower. It's very basic. It's got 4 cylinders, 4 spark plugs, 4 leads coming off the distributor. The distributor has wires that go from the distributor down to the spark plug, and it's just a piece of copper that runs down. They're exposed. Don't touch them, otherwise it'll give you a shock. We've got an exhaust manifold here that picks up from each of the cylinders and brings the burnt fuel down through the exhaust pipe. And then we've got a basic carburetor that is an upflow carburetor, single barrel. We've got a choke right here that actually chokes the engine. You pull a lever on the inside and that chokes it, and it also turns so you can adjust the mixture. It's got a 2-bladed fan. We have a starter motor down here that gives us the juice to get her going, and we've got a rod that you push on from the inside on the floorboard, and that's actually what starts the starter motor. This is where you add the oil. It runs about 5 quarts in this engine. This is the supply line for the engine. It comes back from the radiator and back into the engine.
The cooling supply line, right?
Cooling supply line, yes. And this is the generator, and this is a cutoff actually, so it cuts off when it gets to be a certain voltage and when it's getting enough juice. This is the gas tank, and the gas goes from the gas tank down into the carburetor. And this is actually a tube that runs the windshield wipers. It takes vacuum off of the intake manifold, and that's what operates the windshield wiper. So it's a very basic engine, not as complicated as the engines that you would see in today's cars.
So coming right outside the engine bay here, Tim, what's this thing connected just below the light here?
Well, I think most people have heard of an Ugo horn, and it gives this sound. And it's just actually a little electric motor that runs inside against a sheet of material that creates the sound. And it really is a kind of unique, very special sound for the Model A.
So I noticed there's something down at the bottom of the radiator there.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
it?
I wanted to mention that. There's a little hole right here. And what you did back in the olden days is actually you used a crank to start the car all the time, and that's what that's for, it's for a crank. Now, this has a starter motor like I mentioned before, but you can also crank it if the battery is low or dead, and you just simply put the crank in there and you turn it. I have a crank that I carry with me just in case I need it. One of the things you have to be really careful about when you're cranking a car is you have to put the spark all the way to retard so that you won't kick back and break your thumb.
All right, let's see inside this thing.
Hey, good idea. The inside's really fun. A lot of the things that you'll recognize that would be the same as any modern car. When you're taking passengers, you actually fold this seat down. So people can come in comfortably, and you can fit 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 little people like grandkids in that back seat. And then you can have grandma and grandpa sit in the front, which works out really well too. The horn button is right here. And then the lights are actually kind of different because you actually turn this lever. That's the parking lights, or running lights we call them, and then they got the low beam and high beam right here. So that's kind of a neat thing because it's right there, right where you got your hands anyway. Behind the steering wheel, we have 2 levers. One is the throttle, the gas, and you pull that down to be able to speed it up a little bit. So if you want to idle it more fast, you can do it that way. And then that corresponds with the gas pedal down here. So you can see that they move together, which is kind of fun. Normally I just put it down just a little bit to get it started, just so it'll idle a little bit faster. But the other thing that's really quite different is the spark control. You start it all the way in the up position because that's when it's retarded, and then as you get going down the road, as you start it, you put it about the middle, and as you go down the road, you put it just a little bit further down to get it more advanced. And you adjust this as you go down the road where the engine runs the smoothest.
So what are these gauges that we're looking at here?
Oh, well, we've got a very simple set of gauges here. You obviously have a switch right here, which just simply turns the ignition on. Then we've got a gas gauge right here. Now this is the gas tank right here that's physically inside the car. And this is actually a float that's on a pivot. And you can see right here it says that we've got a half tank. Then we have an ammeter right here, which shows you what your battery is doing, if it's charging or not charging. Then we have a speedometer. And this car actually has 25,000 miles on it since it was rebuilt initially. And the speedometer just simply tells you how fast you're going, and it's actually pretty accurate. We have a couple of pedals. The pedal on the right is your brake pedal, just like any car would have, and the pedal on the left is your clutch. Again, if you drive a standard transmission, that would be very, very similar. Then way up on top right here is where the starter is. You put your toe on that, and that operates the starter motor, just like I explained when we were under the hood. You can't put your foot on the starter pedal and the gas pedal at the same time. So that's why you want to use this lever up here to give you some gas as you're getting going. So you can see the pedal moving down there. And right alongside of the gas pedal, you've got a rest. And actually why that's there is so that when you're driving down the road, you can actually put the right side of your foot on the rest, and then you push the pedal by just turning your foot just a little bit. The shift pattern is a reverse H. It's a very standard pattern from early on. You got neutral, of course, and then down on the bottom left is first. And then you go up and push up for second. Then you go straight down through neutral, and that's third. And the interesting thing about the Model A is that there was no sinker mesh in the transmission. What that means is that lines up the gears so that they don't grind. In this case, you have to actually do that manually. So what you have to do is put the clutch in, put it to neutral, bring the clutch out again while you're in neutral, and then put it back in again, and then you go into third. Then we have an emergency brake right here, which keeps everything still while you're parked. And this is the control for the choke. So when you start this car, you want to enrich it. Now that's all the way squeezed in to the right. And what you want to do is you want to turn it about half a turn out, or maybe 3/4 of a turn even. And then that enriches the gas so that you can get a better mixture and start it more easily. And then push the starter motor and you pull the choke out. And once it's just starting to crank, you push the choke back in again so that you don't flood the engine. But bring the spark down to mid position, and I can bring the throttle up just a little bit just to get it running more smoothly. And I can adjust this down just a little bit. It's not as complicated as flying an airplane, but it's more complicated than driving your Ford Expedition. So
you fly airplanes too, right?
Hey, I do, yeah. I enjoyed flying airplanes throughout my life. Started out flying over in Africa, working with a mission organization. But then I flew throughout my career as well for my work as an architect. And that was a good experience too. But I've always enjoyed mechanics, but it's fun to do the mechanics that are a little more simple and not as complicated as the modern day cars with the computers.
And so these are pretty easy to work on then?
They're very easy to work on, yeah.
I know generally it's not polite to ask like how much these things cost, but obviously our channel, we try to make memories on a budget. And my understanding is you can get into one of these fairly reasonably, right? And go to car shows and really have a good time without spending lots and lots and lots of money. What does a guy expect to pay for something like this?
Well, it depends upon the condition of the car. One is an excellent, beyond a show quality car would be like a museum piece, which you don't really drive. And the other one is just kind of a parts car. So most cars are kind of in the middle, in a 3 or 4 or 5 range. And but to get one that's actually nice looking, like this one would be, normally you'd spend between $10,000 and $15,000 for one that's already fixed up. Now, when you and I bought that truck, we spent $900 for it, and then we put probably about $10,000 or so into it, and now it's probably worth in the $15,000 to $20,000 range. So it's not that expensive compared to some of the muscle cars that are out there where you spend maybe $50,000, $75,000, $100,000. So.
Well, I'd say, what do you think about going for a ride?
Hey, I'm always open for a ride. Let's go. Got your seatbelts on?
Yep.
All right, emergency brake off. Clear traffic. And we are ready to roll. So now we're cruising along. We got 25 miles an hour going through our speed zone here at 35, so we don't want to go too fast. And now we're up and running. Hey, one of the fun things about driving this car is that when you meet people coming down the road, it's very seldom that you don't get a wave or a thumbs up or at least a big smile. Often the horn is blowing, when they come up to the car, and they love that. So it's just a fun car to drive. So we're driving along here, and we're traveling at 45, and I'll get it up to 50, and it just drives like an ordinary car, really. So here we are at 50. It's driving along very nicely.
Well, Tim, thanks for taking us for a ride. That was sure fun.
It was always fun to go on a ride in a Model A.
I imagine you got this by mom. You were able to purchase this because you could offer to take grandkids for rides?
Hey, it's a great car for taking kids. We had the truck, and I love the truck, and it's just fun working with you on it and rebuilding it and getting it on the road. But one of the issues that we had is the truck wasn't big enough to haul grandkids. So now we can actually put Grandma and me, and we can put 3 or 4 grandkids in the back. And now we've given the cars both names. So this is Annie, and it comes from Sharon's, my wife's grandmother, Annie, and Sharon is also Sharon Ann. But then also the truck, we've named the truck Albert, because that's Sharon's dad. And it's just kind of fun to have A, like Ann and Albert starting the word, and then having Annie and Albert.
So your wife gives you permission to purchase toys like this if you name them after members of her family.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
I bet it sounds pretty good.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for watching this. It's a little longer video than probably normal, and we hope you enjoyed it as we're trying to cope with quarantine here a little bit and showing you some of the stuff. If you like the video, please subscribe, please like and share it with the friends. Maybe you know somebody in a Model A club or somebody that is interested in getting into car collecting or maybe going to a car show and doesn't want to break the bank. And if you like this video, let us know, and we'll do a similar video on the truck and show you that as well. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.